Lawmakers in Zimbabwe have approved a controversial bill that outlaws criticism of the country's government. Now, the so-called Patriotic Bill, which still has to be signed into law by President Emerson Mnangagwa, has sparked fears of a potential crackdown on dissent. It was passed just hours after the government announced that parliamentary and presidential elections will be held on August 23rd of this year. Mnangagwa is seeking a second term in office. Now, journalists have criticized the law as an unconstitutional attempt to muzzle free speech and criminalize criticism of the president and his party.
They want to be seen to be hardliners, so they want this law to try and put fear in the hearts of the electorate, in the hearts of the opposition, by using this bad law, which is coming on the eve of an election.
Well, much of the outcry stems from one clause that criminalizes acts that, quote, damage the sovereignty and national interest of Zimbabwe. In extreme cases, violators face up to 20 years behind bars. Now, the ruling ZANU-PF party says that this is meant to encourage the people of Zimbabwe to love their country. But civil society leaders, they are sounding the alarm here. The prominent journalist and activist Hopewell Chinowo wrote on Twitter, "A very sad day for Zimbabwe today as that country's parliament has passed the Patriot Act bill into law. It seeks to destroy freedom of association and assembly. Free speech is now dead, and any Zimbabwean holding a meeting with a foreign government official will be jailed." Yeah, very stark terms there. For more on this law, I want to bring in now Mr. Tendai Biti, the constitutional lawyer and a former finance minister in the Government of National Unity in Harare. It's good to have you on the program, Mr. Biti. If, as seems likely, President Mnangagwa signs this bill into law, what will that mean for freedom of speech and democracy in Zimbabwe?
It would definitely have a major chilling effect on Zimbabwean citizens, on us in the opposition, on NGOs. It will prescribe their right to freedom of association, freedom of speech. Remember, what it is essentially doing is that don't interact with the foreign government, don't badmouth us with the foreign, government. And if you look closely at the law, securing a conviction will be very difficult. But the pretrial incarceration, which could last up to years, they'll fix you for that. As I'm talking to you right now, Honorable Job Scala has been in prison since June 14 last year over something that many people will know he will not get convicted of. So this is a clampdown on the opposition. This is a clampdown on alternative opinion. And remember, too, that this is coming in the context of the recently passed the Private Voluntary Organizations Act, which stops NGOs, PVOs from receiving foreign funding and so forth. So it's basically an emasculation of democratic space.
Let me ask you, since it says that you're not supposed to badmouth the government with a foreign entity, let's consider you and me. I work for an international broadcaster. You're in Zimbabwe, and you and I are talking, and you criticize the government. Under this patriotic law, the Patriot Law, could you be accused of violating that law? Could you be put in prison for talking with me?
Yes, easily. If you are considered, if your radio station is considered a proxy of the German government, definitely yes, it fits into the bill. So they say government or agent or a proxy of the government. That can mean anything. That can mean anything. So the definition is wide. And remember, the offence is anything that puts into disrepute the sovereignty of Zimbabwe. Yes. That means that if I speak honestly about, let's say, the corruption, the massive corruption in this country, obviously that affects the sovereignty, but it's fact. And I'm entitled to speak on that as a Zimbabwean. I've got a right to criticize that which is wrong. But this law is saying you can't do that. Shut your mouth and don't say anything bad about us.
And considering that, you've got the government that has just announced elections will take place on August 23rd. Do you expect these elections, do you expect them to be free and fair?
Quite clearly, no. I mean, I've just come from Parliament right now where we were stopped from discussing amendments to the Electoral Act because our law says you can't pass any amendments once the proclamation for elections has been made. And as you know, elections were proclaimed yesterday, the 31st of May 2023. So there are no reforms. The voter registration exercise has been shambolic. We in the opposition have been denied the right to address people since January. More than 63 of our meetings have been banned. Opposition leaders, including Jobs Kalav mentioned, are in prison. Jacob Ngarubvume, another opposition leader, was jailed for 4 years a few weeks ago for encouraging people to go on a peaceful demonstration. As I'm talking to you right now, I'm facing a charge of a criminal nonsense, of allegedly shouting at someone, and I've been in court for over 70 days. So it's a claim down. It's a fascism at its worst, but that's Zimbabwe. So we don't expect a free and fair election at all.
I just wanted to ask you, last time around in 2018, the incumbent, Emerson Mnangagwa, won just months after he had ousted longtime President Robert Mugabe. I remember it well. It was live on television. There was a palace coup. The ZANU-PF party, it has been in power nonstop since independence in 1980. Is there any chance?
That's 4 years ago.
Is there any chance of the opposition winning this time?
Without a doubt. I mean, in a free and fair election, we'll win hands down. You know, the average citizen, once change, the average citizen is suffering. As I'm talking to you right now, inflation is close to 1,000%. In the past 2 weeks alone, our currency has collapsed by over 400 percent. There's shortage of goods in the markets. Salaries have been eroded by exchange rate and mismanagement. Over 2/3 of our people are living in extreme poverty, surviving on less than US $1.25 a day. Over 4 million Zimbabweans are out in the diaspora aching a living. This is a perfect classical environment and context for people voting for change, and they will vote for change. So without a doubt, but you have a problem that elections in Zimbabwe are determined by the electorate and not the electorate. So how do you demilitarize these elections? How do you civilianize these elections? How do you create an environment that can guarantee free and fair elections in Zimbabwe? And that's the million-dollar question.
Yeah, and we will definitely be following the campaign and that election in August. Mr. Tendai Biti, Zimbabwean parliamentarian and constitutional lawyer, we appreciate your time tonight and your honesty. Thank you.